And we are live. Hey, everybody, this is Cameron, the writer and director behind Queen of Hearts. And with me is the producer and star of Queen of Hearts, Madison Bates. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. Long time no see.
I know.
Um, Today, we're going to be doing an Act 5 discussion. So if you're watching live, obviously you can throw out any comments or questions in the chat. If you're watching this after the fact, feel free to throw out any comments or questions in the comments, and we'll probably get around to answering those as well. So anyway, great to see you. All right, so Act 5. I remember when I sent it to you, you were I remember you're like, it's all over the place. um, and it kind of is. I mean, obviously, when you see the whole film all together, it doesn't quite feel that way. You feel like obviously
Right.
the film is progressing. Um, but yeah, it's like, Act One is sort of the introduction, and then Act Two, you get the Cooper Caroline backstory, and then Act
Mhm.
Three, it's like, both your story and Caroline's story, and then Act Four is like your past with the Black Lodge, and then Act Five is like basically going through time and space, and and Annie's going every which direction. I think it's kind of I've had people say to me it's the most experimental part of the film.
It is.
Um, I guess it's surprising for me to hear that sometimes because I've always thought of it as just one giant film, and the acts were an afterthought. Um, but yeah, I guess I mean because obviously we're dealing with going back in time with Laura and dealing with obviously visiting little Cooper as a kid, and you in the chair and the I'm fine sequence and all that. So,
Yeah.
and then obviously the finale. So I guess it is kind of every which way, but that's because that's just what's happening in the story. So,
Right.
um, all right. So Act 5, how do you feel about Act 5 as a standalone thing?
Yes. As a standalone, I liked it a lot, but there's so much in it that, ultimately I prefer to watch it with the whole film. That's just, that's how it's meant to be. I think standalone it's great, is especially, provided you've seen the other acts.
Yeah.
Um, but there's just so much packed in there, and honestly it keeps you engaged the whole time. You're kind of on the edge of your seat the whole time, so I think it's great.
And you never know where it's going.
Yeah.
One thing I liked about structuring the acts, and it was structured this way in the script itself, but when it came time to like, cutting the film into separate sections, one of the reasons why I chose Act 5 to be the way it is that like it starts off with you going into the White Lodge, meeting Freddie and all that, and then Freddie is at the end of the film talking to you guys on the street. Also, you meet Laura within the first like 5 minutes of Act 5, and then
Mhm.
it obviously concludes with Laura and you and Cooper on the street. So I kind of like that whole idea of Freddie and Laura at the start, and then it just kind of wraps around with them as well. It's sort of like their part of the film. We have a few people watching right now. Hello. Make sure to throw out any comments or questions in the chat. Sam asks, "Has anyone watched Queen of Hearts backwards yet?" Uh, I don't know. Maybe some people have watched it at like speed 1.5 or 2 on YouTube to kind of speed it up, watch all 4 hours in 2 hours. But no, I have not watched it backwards. I have watched sequences backwards, moving the editing timeline thing back and forth. And I remember when we were doing the ADR, it was quite fun because sometimes we would go back and forth and you would hear like the dialogue backwards and that type of thing. But that is one thing that we absolutely did not do in this film. We did not record anybody talking backwards. We had discussed that um, for the Black Lodge sequence.
We did.
But it ended up because we were up against the pandemic and a lot of other factors, we decided to just use the audio from the show proper, which is fine. It worked out fine. But we had discussed about doing some of our own backwards talk. But at that point, it was like, oh, do we really have time to do all this? So, um, but yeah, that would have been interesting.
It would have been. It was one of those things that would have been a nice little extra treat, I think, to put in there. But you know, we had so much else that we were needing to put a lot of work into at the time to in order to get it out that, it just ended up, it ended up taking a backseat.
Plus, I like the idea of at times using the audio from the show because then it kind of it blends in with all the timelines and kind of says that even though our film is its own thing, at the same time that there is a relationship with the previous series. So I kind of like that happening. So what are some of the highlight moments of Act 5 for you?
For me, um, I'd have to say I I really like the Annie Laura scene. I like um I like them talking together. That's a big highlight for me.
You're talking
Um,
about the little Laura scene, or you're talking about when you're in the bed with Laura?
right, the little Laura scene.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, the in bed with Laura scene is iconic, and it was really cool to recreate that. I mean, it's really cool to watch and see that. And
There's
um,
there's a lot of people who think that that's the real shot from the movie.
we worked very hard to make it look like that. Like
Even
movement, tiny
yeah,
little
yeah, even your head lift off the pillow.
everything. I tried really hard to get it just so, but that was a highlight too. And then I also have to say, um, the gazebo scene with Cooper at nearing the end. Um, Not quite at the end, but that was another highlight for me. I enjoyed the part where they say goodbye and she kind of waves goodbye to him before walking off. That with the music really gets me every time. Um,
Is that music? Is that
it
Andrew Bad
is. It
Limit?
totally adds a whole nother level of emotion to the scene.
Absolutely. And at that point, Annie doesn't know she's ever gonna see Cooper again, because
Right.
she's kinda given him she's kinda passed the baton to him,
Right.
and off she goes. She's not realizing that, like, "Hey, in a number of years, I'll see you on the street." So
And she knows he needs to go into the lodge as well. So, you never know
what's
what's
gonna happen?
going to happen in there.
Exactly. Yeah, there's so much in Act 5 that I like. I like the sort of like uh the flashes like before you meet Laura in the bed, how it kind of like shows everything going backwards, like you
Oh
running
yeah.
through the woods backwards, you coming down the staircase backwards. Um Obviously the sort of the smoke and the fire sounds, the fire engine sounds and all that, because obviously tying back in with the whole fireman aspect. I think you and little Laura came off incredibly well. Um,
Great.
I always knew that could be a really great scene, and you guys totally proved that it would be. So that's fantastic. The long day of filming with you changing into all the different wardrobes for the I'm fine sequence. And I think the reason why the I'm fine sequence like really works is because it's preceded by this, 5 minute, 6 minute monologue that Sarah does as Norma. And it's so kind of introspective about your relationship as sisters and how she feels about you, and then to follow up that sequence with you in the chair. I think if it had just been like, oh, here's Annie in the chair and she's saying I'm fine, yeah, I mean it would have worked. But I think you really feel the tragedy, the sadness of that particular moment based off what Norma says to you prior.
And then of course the fading out of the chair. I think with the song choice specifically, I loved it. The song choice was great, and I really really enjoyed that one.
Well, especially since the song gets into act one, act two,
Mhm.
talks about and the fact that we cut it up into acts as well. um Yeah, and of course the epic scene of you jumping out of the car and running to Glastonbury Grove, and
Yeah.
your breakdown at that moment. And we had talked about it. It's like, she's been tasked with this assignment to go give this message to Laura. Uh, she gives a message to Laura, not exactly the one that she was asked to give, but she gives a message to Laura. So her breakdown in Glastonbury Grove, she feels like she's completely botched this whole thing. She's
Yeah.
failed this whole
Failed.
mission, not knowing that she didn't. Even though she changed up some stuff, the universe has a way of course correcting. And but I really love that idea of Annie having a breakdown at Glastonbury Grove and like passing out in Norma and Sheriff Truman's arms and all that. And that was a pretty emotional scene to shoot. I mean, we had to do a few different takes of it to get all the necessary coverage and all that. But what was that like for you, running through the woods barefoot and then and collapsing? I mean,
I mean, I
I,
liked it.
that,
I have a lot of fun with stuff like that, in the woods, and I love that whole vibe. So
but when you collapse outside Glastonbury Grove, that is a real fall. That is
it is
not.
a real fall. I did actually fall harder than I meant to. I got this huge cut on my leg, like more of a scrape, but like I just had this scrape like all up my leg. And because the falls, like I was trying to fall, but it kept looking planned, and then I actually did fall at one point, and that's what we ended up using. So I thought that was funny. It was it was raining the whole morning that we were setting up for the scene. So we set up that entire scene in the rain. And then it luckily stopped, it stopped raining and we were able to film the scene. And so it was definitely harder at first to like get there emotionally because, we were so, what is it? Not exhausted, but like we were so focused on like setting up and everything. And then it was like cold. And so, I felt, like not overly frozen, but just like it was harder for me to warm up to like tears, if that makes sense. And so, but we got there. I mean, we did a bunch of takes and I think the running also helped too. It's the dramatic nature of the moment. And then also just getting into the whole idea of, she really does believe that she's failed everyone.
And that
And
was a
it's
that
like
was
with
a
Bane.
and that was a big day for us because we had to shoot. Uh, we basically shot it in order, so it was like Norma chasing you through the woods, then the breakdown uh, at Glastonbury Grove, and then after that, you changed into the Miss Twin Peaks dress, stripped your face of the blood from one sequence, put it on the other side of the face for the other
Right. The other
sequence,
sequence.
and then we had Cooper come, and then we shot the whole aftermath of season 2 with you being put on the gurney, and so I mean we shot
That
like
was fun.
so we shot everything having to do with Glastonbury Grove in one day. I think we arrived there, I'm gonna say around like 8:30 in the morning, and we left around I think about 7:30 at night. So it was, I mean, not one of our longest days, but it felt like a long day because we were
It
outside
did.
all day
We were
long.
outside, barefoot. The ground is wet and a little cold, and my shoes got wet, and so I was I was like really excited to get home after we were finished and you know take a shower.
But we
It was
did get,
fun.
but we did get the scene, and it's one of I know it's one of your favorites in the
It
film.
is. It was one of my favorites, and in hindsight, looking back, it was one of my favorites to film.
So Peter asks, I don't know if this is just about Act 5 or just in general, but he says, "Were there any major script or plot changes during filming?" We've talked about that in the past, just in terms of like a few things having to do with the pandemic. Like we lost like a scene after the Wyndham Cooper robbery scene where Cooper talks about how he was put on leave for a little bit. He's kind of talking to Diane, saying that he's put on leave. He's bored, basically sitting at home. Diane sends him some flowers. Then he comes back to work, and Wyndham's like, "Well, you've been away from people for a while. Why don't you come over for dinner and meet meet the wife. And so that's how that all got set up. But because we lost that sequence, we only shot a little bit of it.
Right.
The,
And then
the
I would say I think the only major plot change, like scenes that we really just didn't even see, was the running through the woods towards the end, and Annie saying goodbye to Dean in a more quiet way and going into the lodge instead of that whole sequence that was originally written.
So we had a lot of, for those of you who don't know, we had a huge section with like the Bookhouse Boys and the military and all that. And you know, it was a through line to happen in a few different sequences. But because we lost a location because of the pandemic,
And
and
to
then
a lot of cast that
right,
be a part of it at that point.
right, and then our other location that we were using, we couldn't. There was no need to fit all those people in that small little location.
Right.
So we ended up just lifting out that entire subplot and and just basically having Dean be the sole representation of the Bookhouse Boys. I mean, we were okay with that just because we felt like okay, it's still being represented in the film. But there was a whole section with the scene in the woods where Dean and Annie meet Major Briggs in the woods. That was a scene we had to adjust for the pandemic because it was originally supposed to be indoors at the station near Jackrabbit's Palace, and like Bookhouse Boys and military and we're all there, and basically things are in flurry, things are going you know, out of control right now because they're trying to figure out what's going on. And then Dean brings in Annie and has this conversation with Major Briggs and a few other people. But because we lost the location, we couldn't justify having all those people just roaming the woods like that. That would
Right.
make no sense whatsoever. So we just adjusted it to the way Major Briggs appears in episode 16 of season 2, where he kind of is standing there in the path. So we just scaled the scene back. It's pretty much the same scene. I mean,
It is. It's the same sequence of lines between Annie and Major Briggs, and it's the same it's the same thought process for the characters too.
Yeah, right. We didn't adjust anything like that. But like the scene where Annie says goodbye to Dean and then she lays her head on the pillow and says the prayer to the fan, that's not in the script at all. That was a rewrite scene to make up for this like subplot that we had to lose in terms for the Bookhouse Boys and all that. So
But
like I said, I like the scene that we shot.
I was excited about your idea to have her go through the ceiling, like have the shot of the ceiling fan, and it, because it ties in with, you know, Laura, and you know, Laura didn't go in through the woods. You know, there's a lot of different ways to get there as far as I can understand from watching the show. So
And we had
I was definitely excited about it.
Yeah, and I mean, and we arrived at that after a couple different conversations because I remember you thinking we had discussed like, well, what if she says goodbye to Dean and then walks out of the house and then walks into the woods herself, and
Right.
We were like, yeah, but I don't know, it just didn't feel like that would feel right that she would just kind of, because I mean, especially towards the end of the film, she's going to be walking at night
And then
anyway.
the whole point was like she had protection from the other, you know, from the other Bookhouse Boys, or, you know, she felt she did, you know, and that part of it was them taking a lot of blows so she could get there. So that also didn't quite make sense that she would just go in alone from the start. How would she, you know,
Right.
how'd she get there?
It felt like it needed to just be a quiet, introspective moment where she's just like, I'm coming.
Right.
Let's rock. So that was, I mean, I think that's pretty much it because we only had roughly 2 weeks left of the schedule when the lockdown happened. And then we converted that. So we converted that down to a week. So we basically cut out, I don't know, 4 days, 5 days maybe of
Yeah,
filming.
I think it was 4. I think it was 5 overall.
Right.
With like updates and stuff.
Right. Those were, but they weren't full days of filming.
No.
It was like a lot of that was also going to be travel time and things like that. So, so like 2 weeks worth of, you know, work overall. I think we condensed it down to about 6 days. And and then we just finished that up, and that was it. I mean, I still maintain we probably filmed about 90% of the script, and then what we didn't film, we adjusted to the point
We did.
where I really, I mean, I think for except for one moment, um, you you know, every I was dotted and T was crossed. Because at one point, when you say to Dean, like, there's some things like I want to do tomorrow before we go into the woods. Obviously, you don't go into the woods.
But she was going to,
But she was going to. So the thought process was there anyway.
there's things she wanted to do, and then she changes her mind
Right.
later.
Exactly. But I also wanted to kind of give a nod to the fact that if we're dealing with a character who in the future is going to be able to like, step through different timelines and
Right.
and that she would inherently kind of had this idea that like because when she comes in and says goodbye to Dean, um, she already kind of acknowledges that something bad could happen if they all go out there. So she's kind of like stopping that timeline from happening already, even. So I kind of wanted to kind of give a nod to that. So that's fun. Peter asks, what was it like shooting on location where the show was filmed?
It was so cool.
Why don't you talk about your reaction to when you saw Jackrabbit's Palace?
It was unexpected. I was, really, it took me by surprise because it came out of nowhere. I don't know why I expected there to be a fence around it, or like I don't, it was just
You were walking, I believe, with your mom, because your mom and a few other, and your dad, I think, came and ran interference in case any hikers came strolling by.
right. They were there to make sure, there was no interruptions. But we were
Right.
walking, and I turned, and there it was, and
I think
was
I pointed to you. I'm like,
surprised.
oh, look over here, and you went, oh my goodness! It's like all of
There
a
it
sudden.
is.
Now, when the tree is no longer there. It's gone now.
Yeah, unfortunately, there
So
were, there was, it was already kind of deteriorated, and then yeah, just people wanting to take a piece off of it here and there, and it
I
really,
think it was natural also,
it's
just the
already
weather.
part of a tree. I mean, it had already been,
Right. But what I'm saying though is that like it's gone now.
yeah,
So it's great. At least the film has it in there so that
it does.
it does have it represented in the film. Um, One of the other locations we shot at, of course, was outside of the diner during your long walk at
And
the
then we
end.
ate lunch at the diner.
Well,
When
we
we,
did. We did.
so that
Oh
was fun
yeah.
too.
Oh yeah. We did I think you came with me. We did a little tour around so I could show
Mhm.
you some of the places and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Um, but yeah, I really liked shooting the scene with you at nighttime, like walking through Twin Peaks at night because it was so. I mean, we were interested in getting the shots, and it was cold. It was nighttime, but I don't know. There's something kind of magical about kind of owning the streets, and
Always.
we only had a few people drive by, whatever, and so we had to do a few takes of it. But I really wanted that long walk because I thought if you just cross, the diner, that's cool. But what makes it really cool is if you just did a straight line where you saw the diner, the train tracks from where the treatment and the grandson was in Fire Walk with Me, and you're heading towards Laura's house. And it's just this long shot where you just walk into the night.
Hmm.
And again, Twin Peaks is about a lot of things, but one thing it is about is tone and mood and all that. And so those long takes are so essential
They
to
are
get.
to creating that mood, and I think we definitely got several that do that.
I also wanted to mention that dress you're wearing at the end. I was looking through my bookmarks to try and find it. I don't think that dress is available anymore because it's not coming up. And it's a really interesting dress because
It is.
it's like, is it tree branches? What is it? Like the skirt of it. I mean, it's like because
It
I think it is like trees.
It's like it's got I have it with me. It's got like texture on it. And it's stars on it, but the texture makes it look like a forest dress, and it's
Yeah.
really cool because it definitely goes along with the theme there.
Right. Well, that's why I got it. But I can't find it anywhere in any of my bookmarks for it. So I was like, all right, well,
Right.
but I'm so glad we got that because it's kind of nice that after Annie's wearing a t-shirt and sweatpants and this like this dress that her stepdad gave her and she's bloody throughout the whole film to actually have you end the film looking
Right.
glamorous in a way as glamorous as Danny Blackburn probably could be, considering that she's wearing Amish clothes through the other part of the film too. Um, it's almost like I think at the end when she's talking to Cooper at the gazebo and you're wearing the outfits from season two. I wonder. I go, is this what Annie just is like choosing to wear, or is she just trying to keep in the timeline of the previous timeline, just say, well, this is what I wore before, so this is so I don't rock the boat too much, this is what I'll wear, because I
Right.
don't know if Annie's tastes are quite the same at the end of the film. i
Probably
think she's I think she's kind of wearing it because she's like, well, this is what I wore on our date, so because I feel like she's changed
found
quite
that
a bit
exact outfit too. We were able to completely recreate it. I love that it looks the same.
Oh yeah, and I did a few side by side pictures on Instagram
Hmm.
and Facebook, which is people were really impressed that I even managed to find the suitcase. So there's this like really awkward shot of like when you give Norma a hug, like I have the shot start on the suitcase, and then because I was like so happy to find this like 1947 Argentinian suitcase,
Right.
and we were, originally we were going to shoot this in a diner. So there was going to be more different shots of, you walking into the diner and all that. So you definitely would have seen the suitcase, but because of where we did shoot it, it was like the size of a postage stamp. So I was like, okay, I want to try and get like, at least a couple frames of the suitcase in there. Um, so we shot that in this little like small little cafe, which was like attached to the hospital we were shooting at. And I was so thankful they let us shoot it there. I think that I think we were like, okay, we're gonna make this work. It's gonna be the best we can. And but then it just kind of began to like go, yeah, but it's looking more and more like a cool little 1950s kitchen than like a diner. And even though we were shooting pretty much like the shots
Because
from the
it basically
show,
was, it basically was a little kitchen.
I mean, it was, yeah, but I mean, it was like, but there were tables and things like
Yeah, and
that.
they had the chairs, they had the little red spinny chairs that
Right. And we
I
couldn't find a diner that would let us shoot. I talked to a few different people and they were intrigued, and I kind of said, well, we could shoot it during your off hours, obviously, so you wouldn't have to lose business and everything, but they never really kind of got back to us. So it was like, okay, well, we kind of need to shoot it somewhere. So, and again, we were like totally fine with it. We made it
No, it
work.
was adorable.
Yeah. And then and we were just going to leave it that way. And then there's this amazing artist, Maya Lundgren, who does these like Twin Peaks portraits. And I was talking with her, and we needed to do a background plate for Cooper's side anyway, because you could just tell that, like, we were going to leave the counter scene alone, and then behind Cooper we were going to change that. So
Mhm.
right there was going to be a discrepancy in terms of the color, in terms of one side versus the other side, cutting back and forth.
Right.
So Maya says to me, well, I just created a complete like three-dimensional realistic view of the double R diners, so wherever your camera is pointing, it will recognize it in the program and be able to give you the correct background of where you're supposed to be. And so I said to Ben, who was doing the visual effects, like,
Right.
we should at least, can we try this? It may not work, but
Right.
can we at least try it? And obviously in hindsight, if we knew we were going to do that, we would have just shot the whole thing green screen and it would have been like totally smooth and, you know, fairly easy. But we didn't know we were going to do that. So we were experimenting, and of course Ben's like, you know, trying to learn everything like as we go along. And so what he had to do was he had to literally cut you and all the other actors out,
Yeah.
like out of one shot, and then put you onto these backgrounds. So that took a while. So that's why Act 5 took a long time. You know, obviously, and then when we were filming, the new owners of the diner had not taken over. The new owners are like super nice,
They
and
are.
you know, they're super great. And obviously, if they had been in charge of the diner at the time we were shooting, maybe we could have shot it in the real diner. But just in terms of logistics, we had you, Cooper, Norma, Shelly could have been a local hire, I guess, but we also had Major Briggs and Wyndham. We would have had to fly like 6, 7 people up
A
there.
lot of people.
That's a lot of money,
And then accommodations
and
and,
accommodations and all that. Right. So
yeah.
it just was not, I mean, if it had just been like you and Cooper, I could have seen doing it, but like
Right.
that many people for literally, you know, like Major Briggs just to put down his fork and say compelling to fly him all the way up there for one word. I don't know. So anyway, so we decided to go this other way, and you know, it was a lot of hard work, but you know, but there are shots in there where I'm like, you guys are totally there in the diner, and it totally looks good, and even if it does look at times like a uh it's not a green screen, but every time, you know, but if it does a little bit, it's okay, because the way I look at it is like,
Right.
you know, the timelines are still shifting, you know, the plate tectonics of everything is still moving around from this new timeline being adjusted.
Very true. Very true. I think that it sorry, I have something in my eye. I think that it definitely comes off that way, and you can definitely attribute it to that if you want. You know, it
Well,
totally
plus the fact that, you know, with the giant watching you guys on the White Lodge and all kind of thing.
right. And I love that. I love that addition.
It's nice because it kind of plays into the idea of that's the way, you know, everybody first experienced the show was watching it on TV, and here we are having the giant watching you and Cooper's relationship,
Right.
and but he's also kind of like, but he knows that this isn't this is a do-over of that scene, so it's kind of like, you know,
Right.
take two.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Let's see. So Ben asks, anything in particular that you would add or change slightly in hindsight? Moments where a bit more footage to play with would have helped, etc. So is there anything you would add or change in hindsight?
Oh, me.
Yeah,
Okay. I
both of us.
thought that was a you question. I mean,
Like, well, I mean, I wish the pandemic had never happened for a variety of reasons.
yes, I
That's
do.
that's
I
the only thing.
I did think running through the woods would have been cool. You know, um, the with the drones overhead and all that. But you know, I mean,
I think the original gazebo next to the lake, I think would have been. I mean, I think it would have been the same scene. I think it just would have been a little bit more visually dynamic. Um,
I can see that.
and again, like I'm not criticizing the scenes we shot because I think we pulled it off, but I would have loved to have seen if we had not had those restrictions. And
Right.
they weren't restrictions in terms of money, they were restrictions in terms of safety.
They were, you know, and we didn't want to, you know, we didn't want any of the we didn't want any, you know, big gatherings, and at that point, you know, it was a matter of health and, you know,
But we didn't have a choice about it because um
true.
I mean, we lost the gazebo. I
Even
mean,
if we had said, you know, screw it. Well, let's, you know, just finish. Like we wouldn't have been able to anyway. I mean, we lost those
no,
things. We
that's
lost, you know,
the thing. Because even if we had gone to the gazebo with the lake, we couldn't even get on the property to shoot. They closed it down.
exactly.
So it wasn't like, oh, well, we're just gonna, you know, do safety precautions. It was safety precautions and losing the locations.
It was.
Like I said, like the station, we didn't have a choice. We were scheduled to shoot the very next day.
Still had the
And I had the key, and if I had just like ignored their phone call or their message, you know, we could have maybe gone in there. But then at the same time, though, it would have then off balanced the other part of the film because we wouldn't have been able to, do all the
It
other
would have,
stuff.
and it wouldn't have matched. It would have been kind of out of place because then that would have been like the only time that we would have seen the whole group of people, and we wouldn't have been introduced to them. And so it's,
Exactly. And I remember asking the person in charge, like, is there a way to, again, we're so new to this whole thing. I was like, is there a way to like reserve this location for like, I don't know, 2 weeks from now? They're all, they're all, we're on lockdown. Like
we're like,
there's
yeah,
no,
but
there's
what
no,
about 2 weeks from now? It'll be fine, right?
well,
Like,
yeah, yeah. Well, that's what, that we were kind of being told, like, oh, let's just see what happens in 2 weeks. Right. So we were like playing it by ear, like, okay, well, when are we gonna do this? And of course, poor Larry, is got a shaved head, and his
yeah.
wife wants his hair to grow back. And we're like, he's like, I just had one more day of filming. And so we had to wait. I mean, that was March, and we
We
didn't
did.
we didn't start shooting again until June. Was it June? Or was it late May?
It was late May because I left at the end of May.
You did?
No, I left at the beginning of June.
Okay, I thought you left like mid June or something like
No,
that.
it was at the beginning of June because then I was in Houston for 4 months before coming here. And
Okay, all right then. Well, then I lost track. But
I mean, it's easy to lose track. I mean,
right,
we're all over the place at that point.
right.
Getting things
But
done.
but like I was saying to you the other day, it's like we kind of saw that things were coming or going in a certain direction, so we were able to adjust. It wasn't like the day of we were like, what are we going to do?
Right, of course.
It's like we knew sort of like a week and a half, 2 weeks before, like, okay, we're going to have to do X, Y, and Z so that this matches this over here. And so we kind of adjusted for it.
And I'm really happy we filmed those scenes. I'm happy we got them done. I mean, we were worried we were going to have to do like a reading from,
Yeah,
people's
we had
face.
actually I mean, we were like, if worse comes to worse, we were gonna have Maddie and Nico in costume, um, doing their final scenes together over this.
I'm
And
so glad that that did not have to happen and we were able to film everything that we needed because
yeah, because I was getting worried because I honestly I was thinking, if this pandemic continues to go on the way it is in lockdown and you guys move and other people are leaving and this and that, and people have to change their hairs for, different things, whatever. I was like, we're never going to finish the film. It's going to be because we had so many connecting little things to still film. And we figured, okay, we'll get all that in the final 2 weeks, and we'll get all these little moments. And then
right,
that final 2 weeks. So we had no, like, it would have gone from like, Norma, finding you on the bed to you running in the woods. Like, it
right.
just would not have
It wouldn't make sense.
matched. Would not have matched at all. So, yeah, that was so I'm glad we were able to do, and it was like literal like connecting moments, like Cooper's face at seeing Josie's gun at the door. The close up of Cooper with the dictaphone saying Diane, and setting off that whole thing talking about Caroline being home and not getting along with Wyndham.
Right.
Um, Cooper at the beach, Cooper driving to work. There were just like little shots, but they were like, okay, Nico, for this afternoon, we're going to shoot X, Y, and Z of all these different things. But without that day, you can't connect 6, 7 different sequences. So,
Yeah.
yeah. See, Peter says, you guys did an excellent job. Thank you. How did you find balancing acting? This is, I guess, for you. How did you find balancing acting with the other responsibilities you had during production?
I'm not going to lie. It was tough. It was a challenge that I was excited about because I've never had to do that before.
And you weren't planning to do it at first.
No, I wasn't. I was not planning to do it until I was doing it.
Right.
So, I mean,
Well, we did talk about though before
you had
that
said,
that
yeah,
that 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 we had set it up in a way that was like because we shot primarily the Cooper Wyndham Caroline stuff first.
true, true. But I still
So
did, for my scenes, like, and all that, I still did makeup and hair for other characters. I still did, the set dressing, the blood makeup, making sure everybody had their costumes and, um, all that stuff. I mean, it was kind of fun. I mean, it was a fun challenge, and you know, just did my best.
no, what I'm saying though is because we had knocked out a lot of the Cooper Wyndham Caroline stuff, and because we knew the locations for the Annie sequences, it wasn't quite. I mean, you had still has a lot of stuff to do, but it wasn't quite like 24/7. You were on producer detail,
True,
and then you did
true. It
Annie.
wasn't that yes, now, absolutely. It wasn't that I had absolutely no time to do character work, because I did. I totally did. I think then the main challenge was going between the two on set while filming. But, I think it worked out.
Oh,
I,
absolutely.
you know,
And I remember saying to you like the first third of the film, Annie is in a hospital bed. Then she's kind of like, on her feet doing stuff. Then she's running around. And then the last part, she's sitting in a chair. Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of is like either you were moving around or you were stationary, you
yes.
know. And I have to just ask you, as an actor,
I
is
mean,
it harder to be sitting in a hospital bed for a third of the film, or is it harder to do all the standing and walking around and all that stuff? For me,
um,
I would feel like you'd be like so external, you'd want to like get up and do stuff, but you're like sitting in a chair,
that's
for
hard. That was hard, and then especially like needing to stare at one particular point for a long time, like your eyes start playing tricks on you. You start like, the light starts changing in the room. You totally start to like visually hallucinate a little bit. Like if you're trying to really hard to like not move your eyes. So that was challenging. And then yeah, not being able to get up and fix things here and there, and all that. But like I said, I mean, it was a fun challenge, and it was something that I thought, hey, I haven't gotten to try to do this before. So I was looking forward to it.
and now that the film is done, it's like, oh, okay, it's like, all right, that was one day.
We did
Yeah,
it.
exactly. See, Ben says, I remember from my college shoots, we'd get home and realize we missed the odd close up and stuff not in the shooting script. That's why it's important to get dreamy and shoot what you feel on set. Well, we did have a shot list.
We did.
Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, we made sure we just got everything that we got, that we had needed to get there. I always did shoot more than what was needed just in case, and I'm glad I did because that saved us a lot in terms of having to do unnecessary ADR or stuff like that because we had alternate takes that I could like pull audio from if I needed to. Um, so yeah, if you guys are watching, throw out any comments, questions, etc. So the ending of the film surprised a lot of people, obviously, because I don't think they were
It
expecting to
did.
see the ending of season 3 there. In fact, I had one person write to me thinking that Ruby was Cheryl Lee. They thought it was the actual actress there in the street,
Look,
and that was uncanny because I felt like she had, I mean, just her stature and the way she was carrying herself. Like I did feel like she was the that character, Um,
which made it
but
really, really fun to do scenes with her, because it
oh
was,
yeah,
like being put right in there.
exactly. Especially when she says, "What are you doing here?" It's like that's exactly the way like I can imagine that character saying that to Annie. Um, but that was a wild night. Just shooting in the middle of the street, and looking up at the house, and we had a woodsman there, and um, we had an actress playing Alice Treeman. We had obviously we were going to do the effects of the frog moths and all that, and of course, Laura taking her face off and all that, which
Yeah,
I'm sure I think I think Ruby was like, "What are we doing?" I said, "Trust me, it's going to look really cool when you do it." And I think that final sequence is like really something. It's pretty cool, and it's like
I think so.
I mean, it is sort of a cliffhanger, but at the same time, though,
I mean,
it's
you
not. I mean,
can't.
it's an
Not,
emotional cliffhanger. I mean,
it's
it's not. I mean, it's got an emotional closure, I should say.
and I would say there's kind of a little bit of excitement in it too because it's not ending. The story's not over, and that's exciting. You're not closing the book on anything. It's still open, and um, there's still lots of possibilities and imagination there. So
Well, there's a lot of that. I mean, because I never intended on like finishing the Twin Peaks story.
exactly,
It was all about just kind of kicking the can down the road just
yeah.
a little bit further. Um, but yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of possibilities there. What happens next or whatever.
Mhm.
There's also a lot of possibilities about like when you were in the chair and saying I'm fine. It's like all these adventures that she went on. She tells
Mhm.
Cooper, "I was running all over, doing all this kind of stuff." That has an infinite amount of possibilities. Like
It
all
does.
these adventures. I kind of I just in my head I kind of picture you in sort of a Kill Bill scenario where you're like in China, with battling Josie and her little gang of henchmen over there.
That's really cool.
I was like, I can just picture Annie wielding a samurai sword, just going crazy. Um, yeah, there's so many possibilities of things, and yeah. So I always, I knew. I mean, I figured, all three of you in unison taking a step forward. I mean, some people said, like I said, they say it's a cliffhanger. I'm not sure if it's a cliffhanger per se. It was just about making a statement that, like, when you're facing the odds and when you're facing evil, to not back up, to
You
just
say
you go forward, you face it.
run towards the smoke, so to speak.
Right. Zombie says Japan. Well, yes, I mean Japan in Kill Bill, but it'd be Hong Kong for Josie, yeah, in the show. See, Ben says not a question but a comment. It is a beautiful end product, and you both did brilliantly. So
Thank you.
that's very kind. Peter says definitely a good ending. Hope you get to do more eventually. Well, if Showtime, CBS, and Lynch Frost Productions want to have us do
If
a
a
Twin
lot of
Peaks,
things happen,
if they want to do a Twin Peaks season 4 spin-off, I do have the idea of what would happen next in our story. And that was only because, not that I was like, um like, oh, I hope this becomes a series or something. It's nothing about that. It was just like I had to kind of think, if this did do well and I did get contacted, I didn't want to be like, well, I don't know. I wanted to have an idea of like
yeah.
where this could potentially go. Um, so I do have an idea. And no, it is probably nothing that any of you have thought about, because it's so out there. But it would be super exciting. Anyway, but we have Take the Ring here. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you very much for tuning in, Jeremiah. Um, yeah, so I think let's talk about the one of the big elephants in the room, which is I personally was very surprised and shocked at how many people were shocked that you didn't end up with Cooper at the end of the film.
Okay. But okay.
I
Now,
never thought the film ever felt like we were heading towards a relationship with you
no.
and Cooper,
And
but
here's why. And here's why. Because, and I know you'll back me up on this. She at this point has looked out for him since he was a child.
right.
Since he was little. And so, I think those feelings would be more maternal, more sisterly. I think that it would be strange if I not strange. I just don't think I could definitely see why she was like, yeah, I don't feel that way about you. Like I care about you. I want to protect you. you know, um, love our relationship, but like I don't feel that way about you anymore. Cause I mean, she's been his guardian angel since he was little, and
Well,
it's
there's that, and then there's also the fact that even though the
right.
doppelganger is not him,
It's still
but
a
it's still a
part,
part of him,
the dark parts of him, but
and
part,
that's what she says to Major Briggs. Even if it wasn't him, there's still a part of him that wanted to do whatever he wanted to do. I don't want that in my life. And so even though it's not him, she knows, and so it does alleviate
that, and
some
that
of
was,
the
yeah,
it,
that
it
wasn't
does
on the front of my brain, but I definitely see that when, as you pointed out, in the writing there.
right.
Uh,
I mean, it does alleviate some of the horror, the fact that she finds out that Cooper's in
he's
the
still
lodge,
good, right? Yeah,
right? So that eases it up a bit. But at the same time, though, she did go through a very traumatic experience with a part of him that she doesn't really want to ever see again, you know?
yeah, and yeah, I think after everything that the both of them have been through at this point, it's just they're like it's almost like like they're kind of past that.
Right. Uncle Beer says, I thought Annie's motivation was to change the timeline to get Annie's Cooper back her life. I don't even think that she understood what she was actually. I mean, the way it's pitched to Annie's character is if you give Laura this message to contact Major Briggs, which is what you see in the missing pieces in Fire Walk with Me when she's visiting Bobby the night before she dies, and he brings her up from his like basement room, and Major Briggs is in the living room. If Annie had given her that message to talk to Major Briggs that night, then she wouldn't have died. And if she wouldn't have died, then obviously, Cooper wouldn't have come to town and etc. So, but you change the message entirely because you're completely thrown off when Cooper
Yeah,
says, "Hey, I'm in the lodge,"
yeah.
and you're like, "What? Oh, okay." Like that becomes like priority because you're like, "Okay, well,
Nobody knows. That's it. Like nobody knows that he's still, Well, they've guessed at this point. I mean, they know at this point, but like, you know, finding him there,
right." And of
knowing
course, you give that
he
message to
helped.
Laura, who has no idea who Agent Cooper is. So,
Right. Right.
but I think at that point though, you've I mean, you've gone through all these different
I've just
times and
lived
dimensions,
a
and
traumatic
you don't even know where you are
time
at
in
that
my
point.
life.
I
Yeah.
think you're just like, I'm at Laura's. Okay, I got to give her a message. You give her vaguely the message of what you were told to, but you mix it up with other things.
Right.
You know,
And then what Cooper told me in the lodge, like you have to go tell someone, go do it. She's like,
right. And then when you show up at Jackrabbit's palace and you're like, screaming at the heavens, which is basically ends up being the White Lodge when they take you. It's like you don't know if the Black Lodge is like coming right after you or not. You're like, take me now, let's
and I think
go.
I totally agree. I think she's kind of thrown into this and she's doing her best, but she doesn't have all of the information. So she's just doing what she can.
Which is why she has her breakdown in Glastonbury Grove because she feels like she just completely fumbled the ball, and she didn't.
Right.
You know, like I said, it course corrects. Air Pressure says, "You all are awesome. Great work. Thank you for that." Um, so wrapping up, let's see. Tim says, "You should all be incredibly proud of what you achieved. It is a rare talent indeed to be able to combine so many elements and capture the Twin Peaks atmosphere in a mystically subtle way." So that's very nice. Thank you, Tim.
Thank
Appreciate that. Um, so wrapping up Act 5. It is the conclusion of the film. The film is also available in the full version, and we actually just recorded a commentary for it, so
We did.
that'll be up next week. So be looking out for that. Um, so what are your kind of concluding feelings about either Act 5 or just the Queen of Hearts film in general, since this is the ending of it?
Um, Bittersweet, I think. I mean, we've been working on it for so long, and it's become such a big part of my world that I had no idea what Twin Peaks was before all this, and now it's I really really love it, and every time there's a reference to it in other media, I always get excited, and it's one of those things that I'm really proud that we finished it, and I love the end. I love the end product. But I'll always, I mean, it was the first big project that I really got to sink my teeth into, and so I'll always be nostalgic about that. Um, yeah, I feel very good with it.
I think the film is even bigger than what I thought it was. Like I mean, I knew it was a big film, but it's not until you start seeing all the scenes cut together and everything that it implies and all the different levels of dealing
Yeah,
with Wyndham and Caroline and Annie and Major Briggs and Dean and Laura and Norma and Cooper and the Black Lodge and the White Lodge, and yeah, it's amazing that we pulled this off, because I mean, like, I knew we could. I knew if we just put our heads together and we just, said, okay, if we do this,
right.
take care of this, and we did it in such a practical way. It's like, okay, what do we need to do today to do the best we
And
can?
it goes to show when there's this, because it was overwhelming, this list of things that we had to get done, this list of big not problems, but like that we were going to have to solve, like figure out how to do, and like the lodge, and a lot of other things too. It's overwhelming, and so like what you said, you take it a day at a time. You say, okay, what can we do now, today, and you just keep going, and sure enough, you get there eventually. And you can't always see it, you can't always see the light, the end of it when you're standing there at the beginning of it, but if you just keep pushing forward and you just keep taking it a little bit at a time, you really do get there. And that was a really cool lesson to learn.
It also helped that we shot this on weekends, so we had the so
Yes.
we had the whole week. I mean, obviously, we were planning, like, we were always like 2 or 3 weeks ahead of schedule, but
Right.
we would also be able to, if something did happen, we had that whole week preceding the shoot date to figure out an alternative.
Exactly. Like we could just completely focus on production for that whole week, and then just worry about filming once, the weekend came. So that I think was a really good way to structure it.
Yeah, ended up working out well. Take the Ring wants to know about your music projects you got going on. Talk about
Oh,
Oleta Pearl and your music that you're currently working on, because people
Um,
obviously love your song at the start of the film.
Thank you. I It's so cool you want to know about it. I just finished doing a set of singles with my dad. We're called Oleta Pearl, Oleta, and then the word Pearl. And if you look us up on Spotify, you'll find our stuff. And then I'm actually recording my original solo work later this year. I actually had just finished doing the scratch tracks for them, and I've got a lot ready. So that's going to be coming up really soon, and that'll just be under my name, Madison Bates. So you'll be able to find that as well. And obviously, I'll be trying to get the word out there when the time comes too. So if you follow me on social media, obviously I will be putting the word out there on that stuff. So if you're interested in checking it out, which I'm really grateful if you are, please do. I'm excited about it because it is meant for other people to hear. So
Well, obviously, and obviously, I'll post everything on the Queen of Hearts social media out there too. So
no, thank you, thank you.
yeah, because people really love the music you do with your dad, so it's great. Um, Ben wants to know any projects on the horizon outside of Twin Peaks world from you guys, separately or together. I love to see something without the constraints, for lack of a better word. Well, obviously, Madison has told you about the music part. I have probably about 4 or 5 projects that I'm kind of dipping my toe in, trying to figure out which one I'd like to do next. Um, and basically, the way it's set up is like, because we did the Queen of Hearts via crowdfunding, I probably would do that again. So I need to figure out like which one I think I could raise money to do next. Um, and yeah, I mean, Madison and I have talked about doing other projects. We haven't settled on one particular one, but I mean, she's definitely somebody I would love to keep in my
Yeah,
creative life, because like I
sure,
think that we make a really
sure.
great team.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and then, I mean, just seeing, especially working on outside projects, working on your own projects, not just projects you get cast in, you know what I mean? Having experienced the amount of work and commitment that went into this one in particular, especially with the writing, the attention to detail, um, the attention to post filming work, making sure that the quality was as good as it could be with what we had, um, that's definitely something to to think about. And so I'm definitely on board for the next projects, because all of those things are what you're looking for in working on a project, because you know it really does make a difference when you care about every single aspect, and you really put the same amount of effort and commitment into every single aspect of the project.
Right. And it's, you don't always find people in your creative life that will care as much about a project as you do. And so when you do find people that care as much as you do,
Right.
you don't want to you don't want to lose those people from your life.
Right.
uh
And also, not even necessarily like they, care, but maybe even like care, but just don't understand the amount of, like don't understand what goes into each aspect. So when you find that understanding, like, that those projects are going to be good, at the end of the day.
right. And we were talking about the other day about just like work ethic, and it's like, I so admire not only all your talent, but your work ethic, because
Well, thank you.
without the work ethics of, if I can speak, you know, of you and myself, this film would never have come together, because we like we sought out to have a at least a small team of people to help us out. And like I said, we've had actors on set when they were available, or we needed something to help.
Absolutely.
They totally stepped up and helped us out. But the day-to-day work on this film,
The behind the
w-
scenes
behind
work.
the scenes, was you and me.
Yeah.
And so basically, if we pulled this off with very little money, and it was just us two, and Ben, of course, on the post-production side, helping with the effects.
Right.
um I mean, imagine what we could have done if we had,
Like with a team,
with a team.
multiple cameras, like, like an actual, like,
Well, no, actually, I talked to you about multiple cameras. I said, "Well, should we do this with multiple cameras?" And you said, I don't think. Remember, because we were talking about maybe doing the dinner scene with
yes,
multiple
but with
and
multiple, but we were shooting on iPhone, like,
right.
so I think that's where I said, okay, we could, but no one had the same quality iPhone that you had, and
No,
I,
I was gonna get another one.
yeah, and I was like, you know what, let's do it, because then who would shoot, who would film that, like who
Well, I
would.
would just have it on a tripod, so I wouldn't have to go around and get that
No,
angle.
I know, and I think that's just where it got complicated, and I was like, "No," because then you'd want moving shots, then you'd want, and then
Right.
from there it just, can get crazy.
Right. I mean, yeah, I felt like it was really great, because like, obviously, a lot of stuff we had to do, a lot of stuff we had to make sure we got done every day, but we got it done like every day. And we weren't
Yeah,
always, it wasn't like, oh, I don't know. It's like we came in with the intent of just, doing the best we could, getting the work done to the best we could. If we had to adjust something, we adjust something. And at the end of every day, like I remember just going, like I felt like, well, we had it, we got it,
Right.
and we'll make it work.
Yeah.
And now when you see the whole film together, it's like, yeah, if you can do that every day and trust your instincts, it will work.
And just keep pushing forward. Yeah, absolutely. Even if you can't see the end of it at the time.
Now, keep in mind, we finished filming. I'll just be courteous and say end of June, early July, because I
Yeah.
did a scene.
Yeah, because you did
When
keep
you
going after I left. So,
right,
you know.
but then so I edited for 6 months or so. So
Mhm.
it's like July. Oh, sorry, January of 2021. I sent you and a few people the rough cut of the film, just kind of give an idea of it, and then that rest of the year, I just did the sound work on the film, and then we premiered Act One. I think it was like the end of November. That's when we kind of decided, no, the effects are going to take a little bit of time, so let's release it in acts. So I mean, like even after we were done filming, and and you were gone, like I still had to do the sound work, had to bring the actors back to do the ADR. Ben was working on the effects. I was, and so it still took like another like
It did.
a year plus to, get the whole film up and running, in a
Because it was just
way.
you and one other person, at that
Right.
point. So
Right. Right. Because I mean, you were moved. You didn't have to do Annie anymore, and I just kept you updated as to what was going
yeah,
on with everything. Um, so I mean, you're looking at basically more or less a 3-person crew. So it was like Maddie and I, and then it was Ben and I on the
on
effects
the other
post
side
production
of
side. Right. I mean, but imagine if we'd, like,
had an
you know,
actual team of people that
or like, when you watch a movie and you see like a million people on the end credits of like a Marvel movie,
yeah.
and you're just like, wow, that must be nice.
And those still take, years to put together.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like, I would sometimes get some crap from people saying, what's taking so long with Queen of Hearts? And I'm like, well, we did come out. I mean, take away the pandemic. We did come out roughly in the time it takes to make a Star Wars movie. So it didn't take that long.
But like, I always wanted to say, you want it to be good, don't you? Like,
Well, I think some people kind of had it in their heads that we were putting together some sort of 30-minute thing, and I'm like, I wish it had been that simple. But I mean, like, I never thought for an instant that it was going to be, a 3.5 hour film. I mean, we had talked about maybe 2 hours, 2:15 or something like that.
and
But
then, there was a lot that we couldn't take out because there were so, like you said, it's big. There's so much in it, and it's all good and it's all important. So, like, it is what it
well,
is.
well, it's like Quentin Tarantino says, if it's all good, it's all good.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, I would have cut stuff obviously if I felt like, oh, it didn't work, or that, I would have made adjustments. But
Right.
I was so thrilled with the way it was coming together, and also the fact that we were splitting it into acts as well meant that, like, each thing could be self-contained and that type of thing. So, I haven't had anyone really complain about any of that. If anything, I get people saying, yeah, when's Act 6 coming? And I'm
Right.
like, yes. Well, if Showtime and CBS and Lynch Ross Productions want to help fund that, we'll be happy to do that with like a real, team and and all that. But
And why not?
until then, we have other things I guess we could be doing. Um, all right. Well, I'm very happy to be doing this Act 5 discussion with you. So thank you for
Yeah.
everything. And we'll be back with our commentary next week. And then fairly soon, you guys will be doing a cast commentary. And then,
Well,
yes. And then I think I'll be doing a writer's commentary as well. And just kind of go over the
very
story beats and that type of thing. So, be on the lookouts for that. So if you are not subscribed to this channel, be sure to, and give this video a thumbs up and all that, and make sure. And Aletta Pearl is on YouTube, right? So people can.
It's on YouTube, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Music, Apple Music, all the streaming platforms. So
Instagram, Facebook, it's everywhere. So, Ben says, thank you both for the journey. Peter says, thank you, everyone. Best wishes. So thank you guys very much for watching, supporting, believing in the project.
Absolutely.
Because honestly, if we had embarked on this journey and we got nothing but continued hatred, or like, what are you guys doing? You're not David Lynch. You're not Mark Frost. That would have been just a bigger hill to climb. And I mean, we were getting that anyway, but because we had so much support, like on the Facebook pages, on the Instagram and all that,
positivity is a lot more powerful than people might think.
Right.
Encouragement means the world.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, because there were, we kept thinking we're gonna make this for those people that truly believe in this project. And
exactly.
And I'm so glad we did, and I'm so glad we started the film when we did, because if we had started any later, we never would have finished with the pandemic. So
right.
All right. Well, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate it. And be sure to check out Queen of Hearts if you haven't already. And yeah, so Maddie, thank you again. And
thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we will talk soon. Take it easy, everybody. Have a great day.